Happy Thoughtfully Fit Thursday. It's Darcy Loma, and I am here today with Tina Hallis, who I have known since almost the first day of launching Darcy Loma Coaching Consulting. I left the senator's office 12 years and jumped, took this really big, scary risk to start my own business. And I was attending the Madison area business consultants meetings and met Tina. And she also had taken this big, scary, well, I don't know if it's scary. For me, it felt like scary jump. And here we were together in this new world, exploring and learning and growing together. So Tina, I want to thank you for joining me today and see if you would share a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Oh gosh, thank you, Darcy. Yeah, that brings back so many memories. Yeah, very, very scary jump. I'll never forget that. It was, I don't know how people get through that kind of uncertainty and scariness without some of the tools I was fortunate to have already been learning from positive psychology. But yeah, so how did I get there? I spent most of my career in biotech. Excuse me. So as a scientist in the lab doing, kind of hard science stuff. And I was at a conference, and in the back of the room, they had a table with a bunch of books laid out. And one of those books was The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor, book you've probably familiar with. And there was other books, and I'm writing them down and checking them out, and I probably got some from the library. But ultimately, that book changed my life, changed my career. When I started reading it, I'm like, there's a science about how to live a better life and be happier and have more meaning and purpose. I was hooked and instantly started to learn as much as I could.
Which is so cool because you are a scientist. So to be looking at it through that lens of, the what does the research say? I think it's just fascinating. And I remember your first name of your business wasn't a Happy Hill Consulting, right?
Yeah, I live on Happy Hill Road. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Happy Hill Consulting. Till people were like, do you do landscaping? What do you do?
It was just meant to be. So that's how you came to discover this. I'm curious then, when in your own life has positive psychology, I experience you, Tina, to be really such a positive person. And so I'm curious, was it the chicken or the egg? Were you a really positive person and then you wanted to study it to figure out how you can help others and what's the science behind that? Or did you study it and learn and then apply those principles to your own life to become the positive person I see who you are?
I love that question because I feel like so often when we get to know people, the story can go either way, right? There's examples of both. And for me, I think so often, I didn't have the self-awareness to really know till probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 15 years into my corporate career when I was up for a promotion. And I'm like, why am I getting promoted? I am not the smartest scientist. I am not the hardest working scientist. And I'll never forget when my boss at the time said, Tina, you are always upbeat and you get along with everybody. And I'm like, I do? And then he kind of went on to give some examples. And I'm like, I guess I do, and it was sort of that aha moment where someone else is pointing it out to me where and even my husband has said, you've always been just a smiley, happy person. And I'm like, gosh, isn't everybody that way? And I'm like, well, I guess they're not. So I do think genetically and just personality wise, I've been very fortunate to have that kind of, bias, shall we say, just that kind of happiness set point.
Which is so great. That's your default. And it seems like you now are studying and passionate about how do you help others who maybe don't have that same DNA or that same default. And so I'm curious if you would just share with us a little bit about, everybody knows that person, that guy who brings others down, where it's just like, oh, how do I stay positive amidst these difficult or negative people? How do you build your immunity to negative people? Or what do you have to say about your research and learning on that front?
Well, so two things I think that are really helpful to understand, or at least have been a big aha for me. And the beginning of this, I learned in my early kind of studies of positive psychology. And one is that we have this super strong survival instinct. It is always on, takes no intention or attention or energy on our part, and it's out there to keep us safe. But what that means is it's always looking for the problems, the danger, right? This person is a threat, or they're not like me, or and so that is constantly going on in the background, and we can't turn it off, nor should we want to, because it is important for our survival. But at the same time, we need to balance that out with our ability to say, hey, you know what? I can notice this happening, and I have the power, this prefrontal cortex, not just my survival instinct, where I can choose, is this a good time to be in survival mode? Do I need to be, on guard? Or is it really a time to say, you know what, that is not helpful? And so with this other person who is negative, my perspective is, hey, they're making me upset, they're making me frustrated, but that's within my control, right? That's my survival instinct kicking in. And maybe I can't control them, but how can I get curious about my own reaction, shift my own perspective? And for me, that's really been, one of the things I've been trying to do is to help other people understand that, we have the power. It may not be easy, right? But we have the power to notice this reaction and to choose and to get better, to prepare and practice at shifting that perspective. And this is, again, so much of what you do too. And I've learned so much from you, and just love that we're kind of on similar missions, I think, in that way. It's like, let's empower others to be happier, make better choices. And then all kinds of good things happen when we do that.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is building your immunity to negative people and dealing with that person that just brings you down and is really exhausting and critical starts within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm just imagining somebody watching and listening and be like, really? Like, but they are negative. They are a jerk. They are. So I'm hearing you say, notice that you're feeling that way, and then make a choice.
Yeah, and one of the things that that I've done is I've created an online course, How to Build Your Immunity to Negative People, and you were one of the wonderful contributors out of 15 experts I interviewed to try to figure this out. And first, it's 5 steps. Prepare ahead of time, practice on the easy stuff, so then that you can pause in the moment, notice that survival instinct kicking in, and then choose your response, right? Choose what would be best for the situation, yourself, the other person. And I think that what's so great is we're all different. And so in our interactions with different types of negative people are different. And so for some of us, it might be like, hey, I just need to psych myself up and like challenge myself to not let them get to me. Or for someone else, it might be, hey, I just need to focus on the good things about this person and realize that we're all imperfect humans trying our best to live in this challenging world. Or it could be something totally different where you just say, oh, you know what? They have a different personality than me. And I definitely sense, oh, this is where they're more direct, where I tend to want to be, more accepting or more social. There's just from that interview and from building that course, it's honestly changed my life, because now I've expanded my toolbox, and now I love to just say, hey, you know what? Look and expand your toolbox and find more ways that work for you, because it really is about empowering ourselves and taking kind of responsibility for our own reaction, right? We always say, oh, so-and-so made me mad or made me upset. And yet that just means we've given away our power. And we need to practice not doing that.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And part of what I am hearing you say, Tina, is like this, if we have a propensity to dwell on the negative, it's because historically that's kept us alive with the survival, the strong survival instinct, like look for the negative, look for the risk. Is there a bear? Is there something that is going to put me at risk? And yet, so that prepare and plan, protect is to actively, um, I guess, reflect on, am I at risk? Am I not safe right
Mhm.
now? And that most cases nowadays, probably that instinct, that survival instinct, we really aren't in at risk and at harm. And so then there is a different choice instead of dwelling on the negative.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. I think there are examples around us all the time. I'm just maybe an example I think is always fun and interesting to bring this stuff to light. So I know we both have teenage daughters, and I know that that can provide lots of rich material for us. But just the other day, my daughter was at school and she's sitting at a table. There's three of them there, and they're about to take a test. Well, then someone has to move. There can only be two people at a table when they're taking the test. So one of the girls sitting there is in the popular group, and her and my daughter don't have the best of relationship. Let's just say that. And so the popular girl looks at my daughter and is like, "Bye bye, Alicia. You're moving." Right. And so my daughter, rather than making a scene or causing an issue, she gets up and she moves, but her feelings have been hurt, right? I mean, right there, her reputation, her status, it's like, you are less than, you are not as important as me, you're going to move. And you think of how that negative person, right, that negative example right there, I mean, now she has to go take a calculus test. And you're supposed to be thinking clearly when someone's just taken a knife and stabbed you in the heart. And you think of, how resilient are you? How quickly can you bounce back when someone else is, maybe in this case, purposely targeting you, right? But again, different tools for different scenarios. But in her case, like, the more you can practice just reframing how you think of other people and be like, okay, this person obviously has their own issues, right? That they think that it's okay to treat other people like that. And how have they been treated that they think it's okay? I mean, you can dive so deep, but I think what's interesting is, again, just shifting out of that perspective of, this person is hurting me, this person is making me mad, this person is doing this to me. When we can get curious, it helps us, I think, be more resilient, bounce back. It helps us be more patient and empathetic. But I like to say, it's kind of like being the master black belt or the master pianist, right? It takes a lot of practice, and that may be our goal. We may never get there, but if you can realize at least that that's what I'm striving for. I'm striving to just not let this person's words, their attitude, their energy basically take over my life.
Which is hard, really hard. And yet in that moment, that scenario says so much more about
Yeah.
the popular girl than it does about your daughter. But anybody listening, if I mean, oh my God, my heart is just like, oh, and who hasn't experienced some version of that, where somebody does something and the impact is you feel bad, you feel negative, you
Mm.
feel hurt, you feel. And so to be able to train and practice to not then let that spiral you down, but put it in perspective and choose what you do next.
Yeah,
Thank God
I think
for
it's
mom.
it, and again, it's not like in that moment it isn't going to hurt or make you mad or stress, but what do you do with that, right? How long do you hold on to that? What do you do next? And I think, that's what I love about your whole core thing too, right? That whole, you got to pause, and the more you practice doing that, the easier it gets, even when it's kind of nasty stuff. And, on one hand, I'm very proud of her. She didn't cry, even though she goes, I really wanted to just sit there and, like, feel sorry for myself. She did the test, even though she's like, I think I failed it because I'm upset. But in that moment, how do you act, just like in your core, right? That you always talk about.
Yep. And I love that. And we always, in every Thought Play Fit Thursday, try to ground it in, something happens, there's a situation, instead of reacting in the moment, just pausing to think about the options, and to what are my choices? What do I control here? And then to act thoughtfully will determine what happens next. And so I'm curious, Tina, if you would be willing to share, and this is going a little bit off of what we had prepared in advance, but because of our pre-conversation, I saw you speak recently at the Dream Bank virtually and was just in awe and absolutely loved it.
Mhm.
And you're expanding the passion and research you have for positive psychology and positivity. And I'm wondering if you want to just take a moment to share a little bit about how you're expanding the positive psychology and your research.
Oh boy. Okay, so to make it somewhat of a brief comment is, so before I got into positive psychology, I was in biotech and I was working to help develop products and services for developing the next new big cancer drug, to work with pharma for the next big blockbuster drug. And so my background now has come full circle where I had some health issues, decided, well, instead of going on medicine, I'm going to dig into the research and used my science background. And when I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's been 15 years or so since I've really been up on the literature and the science stuff. And when I started looking at diet and health and cancer and chronic disease, the latest research is not what is represented out there and what we're told by government agencies, by the media. And I feel like everything I thought I had been doing to be healthy was wrong. So now I am taking that scientific background from the biotech part, combining it with the positive psychology part, because our thoughts, our attitudes so much impact our health, our physical health, right? It's all connected. That mind-body connection is so real. There's a lot of science that supports it. And so now I'm actually finishing up some training to be a cancer patient advocate in support of this terrain approach, the whole person approach. And to me, it's like this exciting part where I get to combine the science of our attitude and our choices with the physical part of our health and how our body can heal itself, and to try to bring that together. And yeah, thank you for that opportunity. It's very exciting.
It's really powerful, the research you're doing. My mom just passed away this fall from cancer, and when she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, she was given 3 years to live, and she lived 6. And I am convinced that a huge part of that is because of the choices she made. And she had a passion for looking at nutrition and consumption and thoughts and how it affects that whole mind body connection. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share, because that presentation that I saw was so powerful, in particular because you are weaving in your personal story, your personal struggles, and your personal passion with the science, the research, to help people to make that connection and figure out what is myth and what's real.
Yeah, and I feel like people use the word science so freely and throw it around. And really, unless you've had training as a scientist, I have a PhD in bioorganic chemistry, pretty hard science. It's like, I remember one class, we just sat there and our whole job for that quarter in that class was to take scientific studies and tear them apart and say why, where were their weaknesses? Why, should you not believe the result? And so it's really that critical thinking. It's like, oh, well, the science says this. No, the science does never prove anything. The science provides evidence to support different ideas. And then you have to go in and critically evaluate how good of a job, how strong is that evidence?
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's I just love that you are redefining like the power that you have to live your life, to be positive, to make different choices. And I'm wondering if people are listening going, I want more. Where can I get more of Tina? Where can I learn more about her research? Where would they go?
Right. So I definitely would steer them towards my website, thepositiveedge.net. And really, for all of your listeners today, what I'd love to do is offer them a month free access to my online course so they can go in and dig into all these tools to help them prepare and practice and choose. And that's at thepositiveedge.net/thoughtfullyfit. And my health stuff, it's still in process. I am not graduated yet. I'm still in training, but connect with me, and I will certainly be, you know, letting people know when I am officially certified and out there, and really still just want to educate and empower people to make informed decisions and not decisions based on biases and media, and it's all that confusing stuff.
I love that. And I'd love to have you back when you're certified and we can actually do a deeper dive on that specific lens. And I'm going to point out for people who are intrigued and want to go learn more, just take note that it's .net, not
Wow.
.com. We will put a link in the comments and the show notes as well. But it's such a generous offer, Tina. Thank you for our Thoughtfully Fit fans and friends to be able to come in and do the course for a month. Wow, that is wonderful.
Yeah, and I am just so grateful for you and all that you have. I don't know, our friendship, but all that you do to support this whole vision of bringing people the ability, the tools to help make it easier for them to make these kind of choices so they can have more enjoyable life, better relationships, better work, better teams. And yes, so thank you for being part of my journey too.
We have many more decades together to learn and grow. And I'm so glad you joined us today. And everybody who joined us, happy Thoughtfully Fit Thursday. We invite you to check out thepositiveedge.net/thoughtfully fit and reach out to Tina if you want more. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.